Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very excited to be joined by this incredible filmmaker, Beecher Reuning. Do not think it's Reuning, it's Reuning. Trust me, we've spoken about it. Several days ago, I had the opportunity of seeing a short film that they created, which was called The Labels We Carried, which I thought was incredible. We will talk about that. And being the power of the internet, I did everything I could to track down this remarkable individual so we could have a chat about this film, which is exactly what we will do today. But first, Beecher, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is fun.
Yeah. So before we get into the film that brought me to your door, knocking, begging, pleading, saying, "Will you please talk to me?" I'm very interested in you. How did you decide that you wanted to get into filmmaking?
Oh my gosh. Well, as a kid, I was like, I want to be an author. That's what I told people. That's what I told my parents. I was like elementary school, everyone else was saying astronaut, whatever. I'm like, no, I want to be an author. And then in middle school, I sat down and tried to write a book, and I worked felt like days on it. And it was like one page front and back. And I realized that I don't love reading. So I had a few years where I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then my parents said, hey, we've got this old camcorder. Do you want it? And then I just started making videos. And so then it was kind of this, I could be creative, making crazy music videos. And I was we just moved to a new town in high school, and I was kind of the new kid. And as soon as I started making videos and posting out of my MySpace, because of course that's where you post everything, suddenly like the cool kids were coming up like, oh my gosh, Beecher, you made that video? And I was like, yeah, with Movie Maker and a Firewire cable, I mean, just like super, just figure it out. But I got lost in it and just do it for hours and made a lot of silly videos, and then went to undergrad like, okay, do I want to do like TV? Do I want to do like what do I want to do? And so then I did some live production stuff that wasn't really my thing. And then my junior year, I really was like, I'm going to really try to make a film, like actually have a script, actually have actors, actually like really do it up. And that film ended up winning me a full ride scholarship to get my MFA in film directing. And so then went on to grad school, did that. And then, I've made for a while, made about a short film a year. And then the past kind of 5 years, been working on feature screenplays mainly, but I have come up with a couple short films in the past 5 years as well.
That's amazing. And it's an interesting thing because you kind of go back to the genesis. You're talking about like the movie maker and like the kind of like the bare bones. During these pandemic times, I've been screaming from the rooftops that this is a great time to create because the playing field is level. The big blockbusters are really being kind of, pushed back, and there's a lot of hesitancy to release them. And a lot of the wonderful films that I've seen coming out just really touch on wonderful storytelling. So I think that's interesting. Now, short film is very special to me because not only at every time I'm at a film festival do I want to pay attention to the short films that are being featured, but I would argue that short films might be even more challenging at times than features because you need to connect with an audience in a shorter period of time. I mean, if you're doing a feature, you have 90 minutes, 2 hours. If you're a Scorsese, 4 hours, with The Irishman, you have, quite a lot of time. The film that brought you to my attention was a film that was only 2.5 minutes long. So, and before we get into it, we were just talking about this off camera. When did you make this film?
I mean, this was something that I made in 2014 when I was working part-time at a church in Virginia. So yeah, it was not, I mean, at this time I'm in grad school. I'm working at church part-time, doing videos for them. I'm spending so much time and energy on my grad school films that got into some festivals, did some cool things, spend so much time and energy. And then of course, going to this church and, we're doing the new sermon series called Labels. And I was like, I got this idea that I wrote in high school. I'd literally written it out in high school on notebook paper. I was like, I could do that. And they're like, yeah, sure, do it. And I was like, okay, can I have a crew? And they're like, no. I was like, all right, well, I'll just use my friends. So I had like no lighting. I just took my camera and printed off a bunch of these labels. And I will say the actor is an actor. He was my roommate at the time. He was in it, getting his MFA in acting. So he was really, really talented. And then I had a friend named Josh that was there just helping out. And we ran around this coffee shop for 4 or 5 hours, shot it. I think I edited it the next day in like one day. And then next thing I know, like, it blew up at the church. It was like they started like handing out labels. Like the suddenly once the pastor in the church saw the video, and it was a church of about 4,000, they got behind it and they were like, "Whoa, this really have an impact." So suddenly, like they had labels that like good sized labels and started handing out to everybody that was like loved, and like people were posting it. Like it became like a hashtag, and it was really wild. I mean, you're in this, for me at that time, I was making a video a week, maybe a video every 2 weeks. And some videos you spend so much time and energy on, and other videos you just are like, I like this idea, let me just give it a shot. And it's wild. It's very hard to predict what's gonna connect with people, but this one definitely seemed to back then. And it still gets downloaded from a website called Sermon Spice and played in churches. And I occasionally will still get an email from someone saying, I saw your short film in church and it was so moving and powerful. And I was like, it's cool that something still has legs that I made back then.
I think that's amazing. Now, I'm going to attach the film with this piece, but for those who haven't seen it, could you take a moment and describe it for them, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a really, really simple. It's just this person going around with different negative labels that has been attached to him, and he feels those labels on him. And if I remember correctly, I think a person passing by just hands him one that says loved, and it suddenly transforms how he thinks. And once he is able to feel loved, suddenly the other labels fall off. And then next thing you know, he's walking around without labels, and now he's passing out labels that say loved.
Yeah. So I absolutely love your vision in this film. And I think it's absolutely brilliant, because you moved me in 2.5 minutes. And the fact that you have this longevity where you made this in 2014. So this was before the real Trump era, if you will. And then we've seen a lot of divisiveness in the world over the last several years. And, when I think about labels, I think in terms of there's so many different labels that people carry, whether they want to or not, or whether they're aware of it or not. And it resonates so true to today, whether it's a label based on your gender, whether it's a label based on your ethnicity, based on your education, based on your age and what have you. And then you kind of strip all of that away and say, the way that I'm interpreting it is, what if we just love each other? What if you just know that you're loved and you're cared about? So I congratulate you on that. And I think that's incredibly impactful. And I think it's a beautiful piece of film that needs to be seen. And it's one of those things. It just goes to show how powerful the art and the media of film can be. Now, when you and I first started chatting a couple of days ago, you were a little, I don't know if hesitant is the right word, to want to chat with me. Do you want to tell the good people why?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I was actually talking with my wife about this, but back then when I was making videos for the church, I really didn't know where a lot of the ideas were coming from. But having been in therapy for 10 years and worked through a lot of stuff, I realized that like I carried so many labels that the society gave me. Like I got my identity back in 2014 being labeled like the perfect Christian boy, the creative Christian that's going to transform the world. At that time I'd just gotten married, so that was the man of the house and the father, it wasn't a father at that point, but soon to be father and all this stuff. And I realized like most of my life I went through basically being what I was called, being the way people saw me, like I made my identity. And then recently, in the past 2 years, after a lot of therapy and a lot of just work, finally came to terms that I'm non-binary, which has been so personally freeing and liberating. And I love it. And I just don't have to fit in these gender boxes that I tried so hard to fit into. And I can just exist as me. And the fact that I sometimes wear dresses and wear, my hair in a fun, more feminine way, and have friends that are girls, and like all these things that I was like, oh no, I'm a man, I can't do these things. Now I'm like, no, like it's me, like this is me. And so it's been a really, once again, self-liberating journey, and my family's on board, and my friends are on board, and my wife is on board, and it's been a journey to get to this point, but it's been wonderful on a personal level. But the culture that really celebrated me, like I went to Christian undergrad, Christian grad school, evangelical Christian, I should say. And then immediately started working at a church full time. And then immediately right after that, started working at a Christian undergrad again. And so like the culture that was consistently like, Beecher, you're amazing. Beecher, you're the greatest. Beecher, you're the greatest. As soon as I started kind of opening up on a personal level, people actually responded really well. They were like, oh, wow, your story is so impactful. And you dealt gender dysphoria for 20 years and you did everything you could possibly do. And then reached a low point where like you had to go really like accept yourself, and like they get it, but then it's followed by like, but you're a PR nightmare, like we can't celebrate you anymore, we can't lift you up anymore, like we're not going to spotlight you, and in fact, can you go away and try to be quiet? And once again, on a personal level, they would affirm me. I didn't have anybody be like, you're, you know, any of the things you think about that people might say. None of my worst fears came to pass, but it was like a, we can't handle you type thing. And so when you reached out with this film that I made when I was very much being celebrated as this Christian 24-year-old boy, when I was at a church, very much in that culture, I didn't know what angle you were coming at. And so if you were coming from the Christian evangelical culture, which I still consider myself a Christian, my wife considers herself a Christian, but a lot of the circles that we ran in and we were celebrated in don't really want us anymore necessarily. So that's why I was like, hey, just a heads up, like this is where I'm at. It's a lot different than 2014.
Well, you know, and it's interesting because you had said to me, you said, go take a look at my website. And if you still want to talk to me, let me know. And I'll be honest with you, I'm looking at your website and I'm like, well, okay, I'm not really sure what I'm looking for here. And absolutely, you mentioned on your website, you know, non-binary, and I'm looking and I'm like, okay, that's fine. And I'm like, is there something that I'm going to notice? Is it like, you know, no Black people talk to me? Like, I'm like, what is going on here? And I will tell you that you can totally run in my circle. I think you're fantastic. So I'm sorry that you've experienced that where people are hesitant, because at the end of the day, again, you know, I see an incredible person. I see somebody who's moved me with their work. I see somebody who now I'm like, okay, I'm like, you know, on the IMDb's and the .coms looking to see what else you've done that I can go and check out, because I just think that you're fantastic and we need more incredible creators like you. Because again, you're very welcome. Somebody can take, you know, a lot longer and not be able to connect with an audience the way that you did in 2.5 minutes. And the fact that we're talking about it coming up on 10 years, I think that says a lot. So obviously you've been working on other projects. What are some of the other things that you've been working on that you can mention?
Great, absolutely. So this is kind of an exciting development in the last couple of weeks. I've signed with a talent agency out of LA called Kaplan Stoller, and they currently have 3 of my feature screenplays and 2 pilots, and they're currently shopping those around. So one of my screenplays, it's one of most of my screenplays actually are more kind of comedy leaning, but one that I wrote from a very personal place deals with a non-binary pastor of an evangelical church who basically is outed, and they have to try to juggle like keeping their power and influence while also remaining authentic, which they do a bad job at that. And it kind of, it's this really personal film that imagines like, okay, what if instead of me just existing in evangelical culture, I was like the pastor, like that was what I had that degree. Like I was in that world because I know that world. I worked at a church. And so that screenplay actually was a finalist at the Nashville Film Festival in the fall. And so that was one of the things that I was able to leverage to get an agent. And so, most of the past 6 years. So like my thesis film for grad school was called A Pointless Pencil, and that one won a student Emmy, and it was great. And it won like 14 awards, played in 32 film festivals, got distribution, and played like in all these theaters. And I think I spent about $15,000 on the film, which I raised from Kickstarter, and I think it made back like 2,000. And that was like the most successful short film that I could ever wrap my mind around. Yeah. And then at that point, I was like, I asked a professor, I was like, how do I make money off this? Like, how can I actually make a living? They're like, the money is in features. And so at that point, I was like, I need to learn that. So really, I've kind of been holing up, so to speak, the last 5 to 6 years, writing about 8 hours a week on feature screenplays. I have made a couple short films that got into a few festivals, but mainly it's been feature screenwriting and just waiting for the right moment to really kind of put myself out there. And then just recently, as of like December, I'm no longer working at a Christian undergrad. And so now I'm able to really be open, authentic, and finally really start pushing my work and say like, hey, this is my time to go for it. So it's a weird season because I'm so used to the structure of either being a professor or a church where I know where the services are, I know where the classes are. And now it's very much like send emails, respond to emails. I have a call here, call there, or read these pilots, work on this new thing that my agent wants me to work on. So it's been really fun. But it's a very different season for me.
I am so excited for you. We have seen what you can do with 2.5 minutes. God knows what you can do with 90. I'm very excited. I want to be respectful of your time. Before I let you go, we are going to do a little fun thing I like to do on my interviews called rapid fire.
Okay.
Beecher Reuning, have I told you about any of the questions I'm going to be asking you for rapid fire?
None of the questions.
All right. So this is the fun thing about rapid fire. It is just that. I'm going to ask you a question. First thing that comes to your mind or what have you, spit it out. There's no judgment. We're just going to have some fun. Okay.
Okay.
I always start with, what is your favorite movie of all time?
The Shawshank Redemption.
I think a lot of people are going to smile when you say that. I think that's like on everybody's top 10 list. You can't go wrong with Shawshank Redemption.
I saw that film in middle school. It was on TBS. I had no idea what I was watching and I was absolutely glued. And right after it, I was like, I might like movies. So like that was, yeah, I love it.
I love that. Okay. During these pandemic times, what are some of the things that you've done to keep yourself like to have fun? I mean, obviously we've talked about you're doing a lot of writing and I'm sure you're enjoying that, but have you developed any hobbies during these pandemic times?
So I like to be athletic, but I don't like working out. And so I've started playing tennis, like quite a bit. And I felt like that's pretty COVID proof because it's outside. You only need a couple people. So tennis is like my thing that I do once or twice a week. I absolutely love it.
Little known fact, they say that tennis and swimming are the best two activities for like full body workout. So you picked a good one there.
I didn't know that. I love that. That's awesome. Yeah.
You almost moved me to tears. Maybe I'll say you kind of did with your film. When is the last time you were moved to tears by something that you saw?
Oh gosh. Goodness, something that I saw. I mean, I will say that my favorite pilot episode ever is Legion. It's a show that was on FX. Noah Hawley wrote and directed it. And I rewatched that the other day, and I'm not sure I was totally moved to tears, but I definitely got pretty emotional and I've even seen it before, but I loved it.
Okay, excellent. Have you seen Squid Game?
I have not.
Okay. Well, I'm going to let this slide. Usually that's kind of a big strike for me, but I really like you. And I think our friendship can move past that. The fact that you haven't seen what I'm calling the best thing that came out during pandemic times. So we'll let that slide. As much as nobody really likes where do you see yourself in 5 years? So I'm going to say 1 year from now, what's the goal?
I mean, I hope that I have either been staffed on a TV show as a writer, or that I've sold a feature screenplay, because I really love doing the freelance writing life. And if I am able to direct some things before then, that would be amazing too. But right now, the goal is definitely writing.
Excellent. What advice would you give to emerging filmmakers that are trying to break through? Because if people go to your site, they're going to see, you've got a laundry list of projects that you've done. People aspiring to get to that level. What sort of advice would you give to them?
That film is so collaborative, and when you actually really start working on bigger sets, there's a million things you can do. So find the thing that you would do if no one was paying you. Find as being a film professor for 6 years and being in school for so much, I've seen so many students come in just saying, I want to do film, and they're doing it for the fame or the idea of being on the cool sets and all that stuff. And as they go, they start to realize, actually, no, I love building sets, and I'll build sets for like free. Like, I love it. And I'm like, that you have the thing. So find the thing that you'll do. I'll write, even if there's no career in it, even if there was no like long-term goal, I would write. I mean, I would write stories. I'd find some way to have an outlet. That's where it all started for me. So for me, it's writing. And I also like directing, but honestly, writing's the thing that I would never give up. And so find the thing that you would do without getting paid, that you can do consistently, and lean into it and just keep creating, I guess.
I love that. I deeply, sincerely thank you for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure meeting you. The film, again, we're going to attach it to this piece, The Labels We Carry. I think it's fantastic. I think you're fantastic. Again, nothing but love for you. That is a label I will put on you. You are loved. I think that your film is fantastic. I'm excited for your career, and I definitely hope we can stay in touch.
I really appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun.
You take care.
You too.